I don't want to pursue success, any kind of success, whether that's, a mom and pop shop or a scalable company at the expense of my family. Climbing the mountaintop and realizing that you're there by yourself is pretty stinking lame.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Awesome Inc.'s podcast, where we highlight people pursuing their definition of, you guessed it, awesome. So buckle up and get ready for some more success story adventures and failures from Kentucky's tech and entrepreneur community. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning back into this episode of the Awesome Inc. podcast. Really excited to sit down with someone I actually haven't seen in probably a couple of years, Devine, who was a former Awesome Inc. boot camp student who has gone on to kick butt and take over the world. So I'm just coming right out of the bag. He's a great guy, and he's already done so much in his life and in his career, and wanted to catch back up over the last couple of years since he's finished the boot camp and hear about what he's done as an entrepreneur. So Philip, again, quick intro for you. I know that when we met, you were part of the 2018 boot camp, and I know some of your background is you served with the U.S. Marine Corps. So big thank you to your service, what you've done for our country and for our freedom. And you've hosted and produced, so another fellow podcast host, the Live Life Better podcast, and talk about faith, family, business, and empowering men, how all those different areas of life combine. You're a licensed realtor, and you've already asked to sell my first house, so I'll think about that. And again, you started Devine & Company LLC to aid nonprofits. So you're doing a lot. Would love to hear some of the deeper insights into all those areas that you've touched upon, and maybe how all of those led you to, again, that 2018. 3 months, when you were in the Awesome Inc. boot camps. So walk us through. I'm going to shut up, and I want to hear it from yourself.
Man, thanks for having me on the show. I like what you guys do at Awesome Inc., obviously, and I'm a big fan, and I keep tabs on you guys. I'm not a licensed realtor anymore, but when I was selling real estate, before the kids were in school, it was a lot of fun. You'd have a lot of networking events and get around. And then I realized pretty quickly, once my kiddos got in school, that I had to work when everyone else was off. And that meant my family was also off and at home. And I realized pretty quickly that wasn't a future that I wanted to pursue. And then also with a growing family and a mortgage, the whole ebb and flow of commissions got really old. So I'd been a salaried employee before, but I also knew that I wanted to get into something that had career potential, not just a quick buck potential. So I met with a buddy who was a developer. He worked remote. This was 2017, I think, when I met with him. So he was already 100% remote. Enjoyed his job, and outside of patching things together with like Zapier, I really couldn't do any kind of code. But I knew that, especially with real estate, there's so much that's antiquated and doesn't have to be as painful as it is. So I met with him about the different options. I wasn't going to go back to college for this, but he kind of walked me through, what I could expect. And I realized Awesome Inc. was the way to go because I needed something in person for sure. And the payment plan, frankly, also worked for where I was at the time. So that's how I ended up at Awesome Inc.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So how did you come about hearing of Awesome Inc.? Because again, you were in Shelbyville, Shepherdsville, if I remember correctly, and you commuted every
Shelbyville.
day.
Yeah, Shelbyville. I just did a bunch of Googling for boot camps. There's a couple in Louisville, I think. And then there's a bunch of online boot camps, and some that say, hey, don't pay anything up front, and we'll just take a portion of your earnings on the tail end or whatever it is. But I think I visited the space. I went to an info day. The vibe was great. You guys hand out Oreos on the regular, which is amazing. I'm still not sick of them. And I realized that it would, in that 3 month span, and I think it went over the holidays, kind of the fourth quarter of the year. In that 3 month span, that's what I needed to get, to transition out of real estate and into a career that I could really, pedal to the metal, sink my teeth into and go.
Yeah, that's cool. And I want to see if this connects the dots. Maybe I'm trying too hard. So in your podcast where you talk about, family, faith, values, business, and how all this combined, was this something you were talking about on the show while you were a realtor, while your family was growing, and you realized, like you just said, oh, the commission, I'm working when everyone's home. Like I'm talking about this on the show, and I'm maybe not necessarily doing this in my personal life. How do I get all these to line up? Was that ever a factor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the rub is that, the Live Life Better podcast, I don't think it's been updated in a couple of years, assuming it's still out there, but it was essentially me thinking out loud about how to be intentional about loving my family well while, succeeding professionally. It was just thinking out loud. I mean, I was, a younger guy then, and there's lots of mistakes I made on the way, but it was just a way for me to make sure that I spent at least an hour thinking about how am I going to do this? What are some ways to resolve conflicts with my wife? How can I love my kids well? And how can I still pursue my career? So that was a big part of it. I mean, I realized, you look at a lot of tech entrepreneurs, and I thought maybe Bill and Melinda Gates would be an exception to the rule. But I don't want to pursue success, any kind of success, whether that's, a mom and pop shop or a scalable company, at the expense of my family. Climbing the mountaintop and realizing that you're there by yourself is pretty stinking lame. And for all the accolades and everything that a lot of those folks have, I personally don't think I would be happy. I can't speak for them, but that's not where I want to end up, being super successful professionally, having my kids estranged from me and my wife leaving me or whatever, because, I'm not around. So yeah, big part of that.
I'm not going to hit in, but internally, I'm like, that was the nugget I wanted to hear. That's so good. So I appreciate you sharing that. We'll definitely come back to this topic. It's too important for me. So let's talk a little bit about the boot camp now. So again, you went through that 4-week window of the prep work remotely. Again, you commuted every day to the space. And some people might think like, you drove every day all that way, an hour each way. Like that's such a sacrifice. Really, it's an investment to what you learned to where you are now. Tell me some of the highs and lows from your boot camp experience, because everyone I've talked with in the last couple of podcast episodes, we've actually sat down with former boot campers who have then gone on to lead companies and found companies, and it's cool to hear some of the same similarities, but some very big differences. So again, would love to hear some of your experience through your perspective.
Let me start with the lows first, because I like to end with the win. The lows is that the main thing is that when I started the boot camp, I was doing a whole bunch. I was finishing up some real estate deals I had going, which took time. And then I was, probably not the best idea, I was also running for local school board here in Shelby County, a race which I lost. But that meant that when I was coming home from Awesome Inc. from Lexington, then I was going out and knocking on doors and trying to drum up support and campaign. And that made the uptake pretty difficult, honestly, with the concepts early on. The coding exercises, the challenges that we do, like the coding warm-ups every morning, I couldn't stand those. I couldn't stand them. I like to think it's because I like what coding can do versus just tech for tech's sake. But the reality is it also meant that I had to face something big, hairy, and scary, which was coding, computer programming. And I didn't really know what I was doing, and it was just a reminder of how much I still had to learn. So, lots of tough times in there. Great class though. Great instructors. My favorite part was demo day, because, that's what I love about technology. And I'm sure we'll get into that later. I loved that I was able to take a concept in my mind and turn it into reality, and then talk about that. It felt like a mini pitch competition, I was kind of pitching myself to the employers there, all of that. But that was my favorite part. That was the high. Being able to honestly, it wasn't even to show off what I did. It's just that I was able to finally use technology for what I was interested in, which is like using it to do a thing instead of just tech for tech's sake, if that makes sense.
No, that's great stuff. And I think one of the funny things too, it's some people strongly dislike the demo day and pitching and talking about what you've learned. And some people, like the two of us, no surprise that's where we thrive. Yeah. Why don't you talk a little bit about demo day, that post boot camp window where you're figuring out how to apply to new jobs. You just learned a new skill set, you're wet behind the ears. Some of that growth time period that you had to walk through, maybe how even some of the Awesome IQ team helped you go from, again, like you said, moving from being a realtor to, I'm applying to tech jobs. What am I doing?
Yeah. So the app that I demoed was, I called it I love it when.me. And, it's in the same vein as the Live Life Better podcast. But instead of something like Instagram or other social media channels where it is all about, it can become about accolades from everyone else. I wanted something where I could capture a memory and share it with a loved one. So for example, I would maybe write a note and post it, and then my wife could write a note and post it. And that's what our feed would be. And it would pop up and kind of remind you about what's important. So that when you're laying in bed at night, this was kind of my pitch, instead of scrolling through and looking at someone else's life and wishing that was that you had their life, you're instead scrolling, looking at all the good things that are going on in your own life. And that, is a lot more fulfilling. So that was the idea. That was the app. Very buggy, but still like it. Still me.
No, that's super cool.
Pursue it. But then after demo day, it's like game time, right? Because, I was fortunate to have enough cash flow to get me through, Awesome Boot Camp, and then maybe a month or so after that. But, I've got a mortgage, a wife, and 4 kids. Like, I need some income. So, I would spend, the first part of the day, I think most of the time I'd still drive into Lexington. I'd spend the first part of the day applying to jobs and keeping track of those. And then the second part of the day, working on the demo app, mainly so that I wouldn't, I think Janine and Matthew and some other folks said, hey, you still got to touch the code. You can't just let it be, or you're going to, in my fears, I forget, but also I'm not gonna be able to talk about it or do anything. So that's what I spent, probably 2-3 weeks doing. I don't remember how much time we left, but lots of applications, a couple interviews, and then 2 job offers. One of them wasn't going to work. It was part-time. And then the other one, the one that I took was for QA position, which I had no idea what that was. I'm like, well, I want to be a software developer, I know how to code. I know PHP, come on. I know what I'm doing. I knew just enough to get the interview and then just make a complete fool of myself during the coding challenges. And that's not a reflection of the instruction I received. That's a reflection on how I was using my time. Like I said, I was also campaigning for elected positions. So, so it was a QA position, and I took it because I needed it. And they said, I don't think I got it because I was, a tech ninja. I got it because they said, hey, a lot of candidates aren't willing to do the travel, 30 to 40%. And I was like, oh yeah, I can travel up to 70%. Yeah, no problem. Hoping that that's not what it turned into. But it turned out to be less than even 30%, and a good company to get my feet wet and learn about software development lifecycle and the importance of QA and how that fits in with everything and interacting with developers and other segments of the team. So that's how I got there to Bastion.
Yeah, no, that was great. That gave me pretty much every insight I wanted to know from, again, we don't, even on podcasts, we don't always talk about the things like you just mentioned. Oh, I got the interview that I made a complete fool of myself. And I think that's the stuff that's the real life that people want to hear and know about. So yeah, appreciate you sharing that. What again, was that transition like from, you mentioned, oh, I know PHP, I know it all, to then you go to be quality assurance and an analyst for Bastion Solutions. What was that whole shift? Because you went from learning one new skill set to, I'm guessing, maybe not applying as much hands-on coding as you thought you would be.
Right. Yeah. The reality is that as a QA analyst, I wasn't writing code at all. I was barely looking at code. I was doing a lot of database things in the background, but I was barely looking at code. And so, there's a lot of relief. Like, hey, I've got a job. I got my foot in the door. I was also really disappointed because I wanted to go into Awesome Boot Camp, spend 12 weeks and then go up against some, speed school of engineering grads and be like, yeah, let me in the door. Come on. Now, a lot of my peers, they got, engineering jobs right off the bat, and that's, kudos to them. But what it really helped me do was develop some key relationships. And while I talked to developers there and I said, man, are you working on side projects? And they'd be like, man, I look at code 8-10 hours a day. Like, I'm not going to go home and work on more code. I just don't want to. And I started realizing that this was actually a perfect opportunity for me because it let me get my feet wet. I'm not coming home brain dead. I'm still available to my family. I like the people I work with. It's a great team, great company. But it also meant that I could work on a side project and not get burnt out, which is, having my cake and eating it too. So a good friend of mine, Sean Patel, who's helping with the project right now, took the time to show me like object-oriented programming, walking me through C#, which is strongly typed, versus PHP, which is, I don't know, not strongly typed. You can do a lot more with PHP. There's fewer rules, I guess, with PHP. But it got me away from thinking about like the syntax of something to the big picture of like what I should have picked up and just added to what I learned at Awesome Inc., which is like, what does a variable actually do? And how do you manipulate the object to do the thing you want it to do? So that was really instrumental in getting me to working on my own side project, not I Love It One, but my own side project in a language that was brand new again, but in a capacity where it was self-paced. And I was able to pull on the concepts that I learned at Awesome Inc. and build on those with the help of my buddy and lots of people that kind of helped me here and there to figure out how to do a thing. And that's been huge,
That's good stuff. Appreciate you sharing that. And I know that you've transitioned in your career a little bit from Bastion being a QA to now you're with Waystar as a production engineer. And I think there's some overlap that you can enlighten me. I don't know all these fancy terms, but what went into that career shift and how did you make that step of, again, beefing up your skill set to then make that next move strategically?
Yeah. So there were two specific things that I did and I'm still doing to beef up my skill set. The first is that I started working on a project for myself so that I could learn. So, give you a quick 30-second backstory. In real estate, when you make an offer, you're either cracking open your laptop at a coffee shop, the office, or you're tethering off your phone. Like you more or less have to use your laptop to write an offer. Versus, I'm with my clients at the house and they say, I want to make an offer. Or maybe we leave the house and I'm at dinner with my family and they text me and say, I want to make an offer. I should be able to excuse myself, use my phone to write an offer and submit it in, 3 minutes and go back to what I was doing. So it's not currently possible that I know of. I mean, I'm sure there's some variations of it. So I said, I know how to write software. I'm going to build the thing that does this. So there were two, so that's the first thing I did. That meant, I fully remote now, but that meant getting up. That means I still do it now, getting up at 5:30 and working until about 6:30 for my own time, right? Everyone's still asleep. There are no demands on my time. And if I want to continue learning, this is when I can do it. So that's like 3-4 days a week. That's when I'm learning, and I'm learning by building something that I'm actually interested in. That's been huge. So I've figured out how web hosting works. I figured out more database stuff, like containers and Docker and stuff like that. I've learned a lot of that. So a lot of stuff that I just wouldn't have been exposed to on my own by having to figure out how it works. Lots of Google, learn how to ask the right questions. I've learned a ton. Now, how do you know if you're actually learning something? Well, by interviewing. So I even now I regularly throw my hat in the ring for job opportunities because when I get thrown a coding challenge, I used to just stumble my way through it, and now I don't. I've received other job offers that haven't been worth it for my current to leave my current position, but I went from sweating during interviews and looking like a fool to getting job offers. and that's, again, two things. That's working on my projects on the side because it's interesting to me about what's possible with code. And then also continuing to interview to see how are my chops? How am I stacking up against other candidates? In fact, I just lost out on one other opportunity. I didn't get a job offer most recently, but I came in second out of the top 10 candidates out of another 200 that applied. So that tells you how much progress I've made. And what is it? 2018, I went to the boot camp. So it's not like this is an overnight thing. Like, it's not super sexy, but it's really effective and it works. So that's how I've been able to transition to from Awesome Inc. bootcamp grad to QA analyst and being disappointed to production engineer at a company that I really enjoy and a team that I had no idea I would enjoy this much. And there's plenty of room for growth at Waystar. That's where we're at now, for all kinds of things. So, it kind of feels like the world is wide open for me right now. And it all started because, I attended Awesome Inc. bootcamp.
Man, that's such a good tagline though, right there, what you said. It's not an overnight success. It's not sexy, but it works. It's effective. And again, that's the intentionality of you, like you said, waking up at 5:30 a couple of days a week, sewing into yourself, sewing into a skill set. And that's the stuff no one is going to see behind the scenes. Not even some of your best friends, maybe not even your wife. Gosh, yeah, that's so cool. That gets me excited. Okay. I'm gonna bring it back down a little bit because I could rant on that for a while. So in a similar fashion, like what we've just discussed, I've also seen some other bootcamp grads over the years who have gone on to start some of their own entrepreneurial, endeavors, or they maybe make a startup, or they go back to a company they were doing prior and they take over the new whatever, and they apply what they've learned. So what's been your main focus, again, outside of learning your current skill set, to continue pursuing something of your own? I know I mentioned earlier Devine and Company. Talk about some of your entrepreneurial, man, that's a hard word to say fast, entrepreneurial endeavors.
Yeah. So when I was selling real estate, I always had something else going on, and that was Devine and Company to produce podcasts. So we produce podcasts for the American Lung Association, other nonprofits in Central Kentucky, and we also, this morning I recorded an interview with Torrey Smith Realty, #1 broker in Shelby County. So it's really fun. It's kind of a passion project. It's profitable, but it's also fun. But that's all it is. It's just a side project. It's for fun. What I'm currently working on, and I'll talk about this in a second, is calling it the Quill App, which is what I've been working on for the past year and a half, building a tool that agents can use to make an offer, from the sink and kitchen counter with their clients, and that's it. And then get back to what they do best, which is, client care, not sinking writing offers and that kind of stuff. And I've got a partner in that as well, who's an active real estate agent, Lee Murphy. So that's what we're working on. But, again, the rub is, guys like Evan at Simba and stuff that are killing it and doing awesome. I have to check myself and understand that in my context, it's not going to be pitching and raising money and all this stuff right now, because what I need to do now is make sure that home base is covered. Wifey and the kiddos are good to go. And that's kind of what it is right now. So I've got it on my list to pitch it at 5 across at some point. I keep a running tab on things like Access Ventures and all the other, VCs out there and stuff. But, really slow is smooth is fast. We'll get the beta test out hopefully by September, October, the beta app, to get it tested and then kind of go from there. But that's what keeps me going, because I have to keep learning stuff. And last thing on this, man, for the longest time with Devine and Company, the audio production, I know you do, everything with these podcasts. And I did that for the longest time. And I thought like, I can do this on my own. And then I made some really embarrassing mistakes for clients. Like, I'd send their emails out with the podcast link, and there was, maybe I meant to write the word shift, but I left out the F. Yeah, that's, when people are paying you, that's awkward. So I've got a small team of contractors that help me with stuff. But with the Quill App, which we're working on right now, what I keep telling myself is It's that proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so, I don't have the bandwidth to go pitch it and do all these kind of things right now. And that's okay. But I do have a team that's with me, and together, I think we will become a success. Also, the real challenge is, can you build a company, just like the Home for Dinner podcast, if you look it up, also produce that one. Can you build a company? Can you scale it? Can it be successful without sacrificing your family? And, maybe the proof is in the pudding. I got to wait 20, 30 years and see how people are. But I don't see a lot of that. And I want that. I want to see that. I want to be that. So I hope that's part of what comes out of this whole thing.
No, yeah, it definitely sounds like that. And it's very obvious what you value and what you care and how you are intentionally acting. Like you use home base quite a bit. So to keep home base taken care of, I love that. And I think, man, one of the really fun things to hear about, again, your journey, it's been a handful of years and now you're working on what you're really stoked about. You found a problem, gosh, a handful of years ago when you were a realtor that, oh, I can't do this, type up something, do it in a few minutes. And then now I'm back to what I was doing previously. It's, oh, I need to go sit down, unplug, write this thing up. It's going to take a minute. Okay, now I'm good. Let me go back to what I was doing. And so you're solving a problem that probably many people have faced, and you went out, you learned the skill set. You went out, you learned some other things, and you went out and you learned some more stuff. And now you feel confident that, oh, hey, I can actually accomplish this. I know what I'm doing. And I know the baby steps, what has to be done to lay the foundation to go fast, like you said, but then also realize if I want to go far, I need to get other people involved in this that can maybe see my blind spots or help in areas where I don't feel comfortable. So that's super cool. And you also mentioned Evan from Simba, man. He's out of the awesoming space and he's blowing it up, and it's awesome to see. And he's got a really good team. So yeah, I love that you brought that up, because that's probably something in a similar vein that you're like, man, look what they're doing. I want to be there. I want to be right there with them. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, it's good peoples.
Yeah, really good people. So let's say this, what's the next 5 to 10 year journey, from perfect world? Take off any governor of like, what would your ideal life look like as an entrepreneur solely focusing on Quill App, or maybe Quill is the first step to the next few things? What does that look like?
Let me just describe my day. How about that? Can I start there?
That works.
5 years from now, I'd like to be working from like 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. That's like my flow state. That's when I get the most done in the mornings. And then and be working on Quill with a team of people that work remotely, asynchronously. And in a perfect world, it would be bootstrapped. No fundraising, none of that, additional pressure that exists. And other than that, I'd still be focusing on making sure that home base is good to go. Spending time with my wife like we do now. We go to the gym at lunchtime when the kids are at school. We do that together. CrossFit, if you know, you know. And then spending time with the kiddos. In 5 years, my oldest daughter's going to be 17. And, one thing that my wife and I talk about is outside of me making sure that, I'm successful at work and at home, we're also cognizant of the fact that, like, when the kids are at the house, what do? We have 4 kids. Like, we got to make sure that we have a relationship too. And so, I don't count like in 5 years, like I don't count success professionally if like at home it's not working. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't count. So whether I'm working just 6 hours a day on Quill, killing it, or I'm a software solutions architect or whatever at Waystar or some other company, I'm okay with either one of those options. And so far, I haven't had to make a choice between either one. I get to do both. And that's the ultimate rub, is I kind of can have my cake and eat it too. So
last 2 questions, and then we'll wrap up. So again, appreciate the time, Phil. What do you think is maybe one thing that gives you an edge to keep the grind up, to keep working hard, maybe that where other people might have fallen off?
I kind of got this from Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect. I call it the Spillover Effect.
Great
that
book.
Book is killer.
Dude,
yeah.
I need to, I have a few books now that I've read once, and I think this needs to be an annual reread, and that book's on the list.
Yeah.
So good.
So one thing I took out of that, I kind of rebranded for myself, was called the Spillover Effect. And I think my secret sauce is that, for example, I know that if I can get to the gym at lunchtime, that everything leading up to the gym will get done and everything afterwards will get done. Like there's something in the day that marks that keeps things in order. And so I think I kind of feel like my secret sauce or why I'll be successful is that it's not that I'm like hardcore disciplined. It's just that I realize you got to have certain markers that keep you on point. And if you have those consistently, then everything else will kind of take care of itself. Maybe not as fast as I'd like, but it'll happen. The end result will be what I do want. So.
No, that's good stuff. And then the last question we'll sign off, Phil. What would you say to anybody? Actually, I ask a pretty consistent question. I'll tweak it a little bit. What would you give anybody as a piece of advice who has gone on to learn a new skill set, maybe after a previous career they spent time in? So again, you went as a grown man, you changed from being a realtor, software, let's go. What piece of advice would you give to anybody who is thinking of making that entrepreneurial jump or making that one career change, and they're still a bit hesitant to do so?
A big question for me that I had to answer was what's at stake? What do I want it to look like in 5 or 10 years? And I knew that I didn't want it to look like I was killing with real estate, but I was missing all my kids' games, that I wasn't able to take my wife on dates, that I wasn't home when everybody was home. I knew that I didn't want that. So I said, well, what do I want from that? What do I want instead? Because you don't just want to run away from what you don't want. You got to run towards what you do want. And what I ran to was a field that I knew I could have a career in long term. It wasn't like going away anytime soon. And one that allowed me to live my values and be in integrity with the things I value. So what's at risk? And then what are you willing to do to get there?
Man, that was gold. Well, brother, it was so good seeing you. We need to do this more often than a few years apart. So again, thanks for the time. Thanks for sharing your story. And I can't wait to see what comes of Quill here coming this fall in 2022.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Awesoming's podcast. And another quick thank you to Lee Rosevear and a few members from our community who provide the music that you hear in this show. Lastly, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, all that jazz. Or even better, come on down to our space. Come be a part of our community and get plugged in, and let's start something awesome together. You guys rock. We'll see you next time.